All right, so these are these minimum program requirements that are new to LEED 2009. So this is critical. When you first get on a project, if you don't want to be left in the dust and you're part of the actual design or construction team, this is critical to bring up. Make you a superstar if they didn't already know. So MPRs, these are 8 basic characteristics that must be satisfied to be a LEED certified project. So you have to comply with environmental laws. So laws take precedent over credits. You can't say, well, I don't have to satisfy that. I'm a LEED certified building. Laws still apply. Codes still apply. Check with your local jurisdiction on everything as you would a typical project. Be a building. Can't be a boat. Though I'm sure they could be more sustainable. But it must be permanent on the site to be a LEED certified building. Use a reasonable site boundary. Gerrymandering, one of my favorite new terms. And we'll talk about that when we get into explanation of these. Comply with minimum FTE and floor area requirements. That's full-time equivalent occupants, FTE. Comply with the minimum occupancy rates. So it can't be an empty building, or you can't earn indoor environmental quality credits, but basically the building should be occupied. Comply with reasonable timetables. This is important. A lot of people, it's not that expensive to register a project to be LEED certified. So they have who knows how many projects that have been sitting there from previous rating systems that just never were being kicked off. So this is now, if nothing's happened within 6 years, or if nothing's happened within 4 years, if you've been inactive for that long, you're not serious, you're not ready, you're getting booted off the system. And if you're not certified within 6, same thing. 6 years, pretty long time. Reasonable, I think. Allow USGBC and GBCI access to the whole building energy and water usage for 5 years. So this is where they're starting to actually track real data. This is critical. This is where we're starting to get real, people. This is good. This is progress. This is going to inform future developments. Meet a minimum building to site area ratio. So a building must be at least 2% of the site. And if you're in the middle of nowhere, just have a huge amount of land and your building is less than 2%, then bring in your LEED boundary. That is something you actually are able to define yourself to a reasonable degree. Which brings me to gerrymandering. It's not mom, baby. It does not work. You need to claim anything that is a part of your development. Water features, parking lots, things you don't like to include, the trash area, anything that's a part of your site development, claim it, include it in your LEED boundary. But it is something that you do decide as a team. Like if you're on a campus, maybe it's not as black and white. And so all of a sudden you're having a discussion, what's my sphere of influence here? And that's when it gets a little fuzzier. But usually it's your property line. It's, your whole development area. So you can't exclude some areas and include other areas to maximize your LEED points. You have to claim what is yours. So minimum floor area ratios. Commercial interiors, minimum of 250 square feet, not an outhouse. This is pretty reasonable. All others, so new construction, all other rating systems have to be at least 1,000 square feet. So these are pretty small areas. If you go smaller than that, the rating system doesn't seem as applicable. They can still be sustainable and implement a lot of these initiatives, but don't apply for LEED certification. Occupancy. So the minimum occupancy rates must serve at least one full-time equivalent occupant. And if you don't, you cannot earn any credits within indoor environmental quality. For operations and maintenance rating system, must be in a state of typical occupancy. So a hotel, for example, needs to have be at least 60% full. And that's how it's assessed, because you do have that performance period, if you remember we talked about earlier. Operations and maintenance, the building must be occupied for 12 months as well. Energy, performance period, 1 year. So that kind of aligns there. Building monitoring reporting. Okay, so this critical new point. They're being pretty flexible with how you submit this information. Energy management and monitoring systems are great. They help optimize projects, energy and water usage, because you can control where you see maybe some spikes that don't need to be happening. There might be a problem with your water heating or something and go fix. They're great for facility managers, but maybe they're a little expensive or don't apply to your project at this time. So there's 3 options for this reporting. You can just recertify your building on a 2-year cycle for lead operations and maintenance. Second option, you just have to do one of these 3. Provide energy and water usage data on an ongoing basis annually through one of those energy management systems. So just provide that data. Or the third option is the building owner just needs to sign a release that the USGBC can access the building's energy and water usage directly from the utility. So that's kind of the just freebie. You're giving away the information, but not a lot extra effort. We'll see what the next round of LEED requires in terms of tracking your data. This is a big thing. The AIA, the American Institute of Architects, has adopted the 2030 challenge, and what that means is they're trying to incrementally reduce CO2 emissions of buildings. And the biggest first step is tracking data and where you're at, or else you don't really know how you're improving or where you're going. So this is going to be the future trend that becomes more important and has true value. So building automation systems. So this has to do with those energy management systems. So BAS, building automation system. So it monitors and regulates the building systems, or shows you where you have a problem and need to fix it. But also over time you can set different set points for occupant comfort based on what people say. You know, too hot in one area, too cold in one area, too much air in this area, then you could start to modify the system and run at optimal level. Or maybe you don't have to have it running as hard as you thought it did, and you can downscale a little bit, and then you're saving on operational costs. So it can end up paying for itself very quickly. So sequence of operations. So it records optimal settings when things are running as efficiently as possible. And you can set it seasonally. You know, everything should change, especially living somewhere like the Northwest, between summer and winter. That could be as simple as changing your thermostat to be actually colder in the winter. You're wearing more clothes, you've got your sweaters on and everything. You can actually dial that thermostat back to like 68 degrees maybe and save some energy. So that's kind of a cultural paradigm shift that needs to happen. You know, maybe we don't always have to be at 75 or 72. And then in the summertime you go a little higher. So broadening that threshold. So this is an example of a dashboard. So this is an example of how a building can be an educational tool. This is a really fun way to do it. Some of these dashboards, you know, kind of look like a cool iPhone app, and actually, you know, some of them probably will be Google's on it, so who knows what's happening. It's definitely progressing, because this is a way for people to really see how a building's functioning. How much is that PV array on your rooftop actually producing on a sunny day, on a cloudy day, average? How much water are you using on average? Is it fluctuating? You learn a lot from these graphs and things. So the dashboards, they're called, make it visual. They show you in a way that not just the engineer understands, in a way that everybody understands. So this will be very helpful. And this is Tallgrass University. The universities are like, it seems like a lot of them are like competition to see who can be doing the best sustainable initiatives. PSU is a great example, and they're doing it for real. The triple bottom line is fundamental to their curriculum, to their buildings, how the campus is being upgraded and functioning, and they're implementing some really profound things. And Wim Wiesel, being from Denmark, probably doesn't hurt. He gets it. He really does. But all the schools are actually a great resource for seeing sustainability initiatives in action, not just being talked about. Because a lot of cities are talking and hopefully getting to action soon. So these are the basic requirements for certification. Review of what we talked about a little bit. Meet all minimum program requirements. So remember those 8 basic things that need to be satisfied for every project. No gerrymandering, Austin Power style. Satisfy all prerequisites. Those are mandatory as well. Those are within the LEED rating system, within each credit. Earn at least 40 points in the credits themselves. So credits are where you start earning those points. Minimum of 40 gets you certified. Do you remember how many gets you to silver? 50, all right. So halfway point gets you to that kind of standard level, which is, as a trend, becoming LEED silver. Good job, guys. And no credits can be substituted between LEED rating systems. So if you're going for LEED new construction, you can't be taking points from core and shell and commercial interiors. You're committed to that rating system. Doesn't mean you can't go back and do additional certifications, but for that certification, only those credits within that rating system apply. Local to Portland, just showing how some of these things are becoming code, affecting funding, things of that nature. Portland Development Commission currently requires LEED silver on all projects that they supply any funding to. This is pushing towards gold. So it's something that, they're pushing the envelope. They're encouraging sustainability through their own initiatives and affecting things on a greater scale. And that's a big thing. It's really on this city scale. These type of organizations are funding projects on a large scale in the community where you see big change happen because they're providing the tools, the resources. So it's getting developers, design teams, building owners, business owners to pay a little bit more attention during this kind of transformative stage we're in. So Portland's codes are changing. This is just an example. We just have the 2010 Energy Code coming out. So energy has kind of been the no-brainer. People get energy efficiency makes sense. If you're able to do it, this is a good idea. Well, the REACH code for Oregon is saying, all right, upgrading your HVAC is great, energy efficiency is good, but if we don't look at this in an integrated approach, we're not really going to have the solutions we need to make the changes we need to make. So the REACH code has to do more with alignment to LEED itself, taking that integrated approach, looking at sites, water, energy, materials, indoor air quality, all together. So even codes are going this direction. So it's understanding this framework, how it functions, how these categories interrelate, gives you a framework for where codes are going and the type of requirements we're going to have to be meeting in the future. IGCC is a national example of that. So the International Green Code, Construction Code, also mimics this LEED framework in kind of a prescriptive way. You can make choices of what applies to your region, but that's what many of these local jurisdictions are going to start doing with that code. LEED, what is it? So we pretty much have talked about in general terms, and it's really the intent that's important. So it's national, but it's becoming more international. In fact, there are key places around the world that are forming their own green building councils to model LEED, but just reinterpret it a little bit for their area. Italy is one of the newer ones. Canada's done it. It's happening around the world. Because what helps is having that national, international framework that's setting the benchmark, that's setting the baseline. So we're all speaking the same language because this really is a smaller world. We're all talking to each other more, doing more business with each other, affecting each other more. And what's happening from that is it's transforming the building industry. This is something that's triggering greenwashing. Everybody wants to be a part of it. But the good thing is there's real things that are happening too. If you ask the right questions, you can find which those are. Pushing tighter regulations on the job site. That's what I was referring to with contractors verifying what subcontractors are bringing to the site, not just saying they're using low VOC adhesives and then throwing that in the truck and grabbing whatever they want to use. They're actually checking for these things. And that's what I like to see, is that third-party verification is getting implemented down the line on site. That's real action. Verification is putting intent into action. That's what getting real is all about. Putting those good intentions we're hearing more about on a city level, on a business level, into action. So who developed LEED? United States Green Building Council. They're located in Washington, D.C. They're also, hitting the code level with the international green building codes that are just being released. Because what LEED provided, again, was that framework, that integrated approach people could work within. It works very well in starting a conversation where you're looking at sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and our atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, all at the same time. And that's why I think it's been so strongly adopted. And then it asks for verification of these things. So their process, it's changed immensely over the last 10 years. And I will say this last one was not fun for any of us that have been studying LEED and using LEED for a long time, because it had changed so much. I get back in that 700 pages of code. This is the reference manual right here. Don't mind all the sticky notes. This is a good tool. And what they did is reassessed where the building industry is and what needs to happen. And they're listening to the criticism all the time and the input from the industry, because it's an open, consensus-based process. And it's a 501c nonprofit. So it's made of these committees from all different disciplines, from all over the country, are getting together in task force and talking about these things and what really needs to change. And so this is how this evolution happened. And finally, in 2009, they said, all right, we're going to really look at this and we're going to really change how we go about this. And we're going to look at those key changes that were very important that happened in LEED 2009. From these diverse group of practitioners all talking and working together. So this is the USGBC's goals. Provide tools for us to work with as we're working on these projects and learning about how to make our buildings more sustainable. Build community. So we have these task force, we have groups within cities that are actually talking to each other about these issues and have a framework to look at and discuss. Forums. Educate. So they're providing a lot of resources. The manual's just one, but they're collecting courses, other types of resources, case studies, looking at it all. So they're really trying to be leaders in this market transformation, because consumers are what push that. If we're educated, we're pushing for different products. And I think it's working. Speaking of growing, there's now the Green Building Certification Institute. So this is a new arm of the USGBC. They're separate from them, but very connected. They now administer the exam to become a LEED accredited professional. We're going for a Green Associate or LEED AP+. We'll talk about those two things. They also manage the credentialing maintenance program that is new in 2009, which really encourages ongoing education, because this is evolving. This is changing all the time, which is a very important aspect of it. If it was stagnant, it wouldn't be doing its job. And they also manage the certification process of buildings. So think about USGBC as being the hub, the core that started it. They're educating, they're evolving the process, they're maintaining all these resources. And then the GBCI, Green Building Certification Institute, are really managing it. They're managing the certification of buildings and the accreditation process, which is illustrated beautifully in this diagram. GBCI, you see, filters all the professional accreditation and building certification. USGBC, we have the LEED rating system came from them, so they're still evolving these LEED rating systems, creating and updating these reference guides. There's addendums you have to stay on top of because they are changing and improving. Education programs are all funneled through the USGBC, so they're a great resource. We'll provide how to check them out and stay on top of them in your handouts, because it's important, because they're posting new things all the time. You don't look at it once, you check it every once in a while. And LEED Online is the link. So that's the new tool that came out too, that's meant to streamline the process. There's a lot of people that are not very excited when they get on a LEED project because the documentation was such a headache. But what's happening now because of LEED Online is everything's posted in one place. it becomes a management tool, and then as responsible consultants, I'm trying to work on management tools. We're collaborating with other people in different industries or different parts of it to really streamline that process. And Lead Online is a great tool to build off of because it's all in one place. We're not killing a bunch of trees anymore submitting documents, which is a plus. Seemed kind of counterproductive there for a while. So project resources. USGBC, once again, your place for resources and educational tools. So they have the reference guides, case studies, reports, all these things I'm discussing. You can see further examples from them. GBCI, customer support, especially once you're on a lead registered project, then you have access to ask them questions directly about your project. We'll talk about credit interpretation requests and the way you go about that. But that's where you start gaining access to these further tools. Lead Online is where everything's documented and how you're communicating with them. And they have all the credentialing info as well. So the 3 tiers, this is the big one, and this is why we have a room of CPAs, real estate agents, contractors, students. We have a very diverse room because it's Green Associate tier. This was a great change. Because really, since we're all part of this, there had to be some level where people could be getting general education about sustainable business and green building. And that's what Green Associate's about. You don't have to know every credit in that green building design and construction manual if you're not working directly on the project. But you need to know as a real estate agent how to talk to your customers, how to look out for them, how to help them reach their goals. There's a new movement now where people can purchase their home like they would purchase a car. So you wouldn't purchase a car without knowing the miles per gallon. Well, now in Oregon, we're coming up with an energy performance scorecard. And it's something that Earth Advantage and Energy Trust and PECI and kind of this conglomerate are working on, and it's having great results because all of a sudden you can be an educated consumer when buying a home as well. You can see how much money you're going to save on your bills because of energy efficiency, water efficiency, and those things in a very clear way. But if you're not aware of it, then why would you even look at the sign? So awareness is important for all of us. Lead AP Plus, the plus stands for plus some specialty. So there's many rating systems that the USGBC has come up with to address different parts of the building cycle. So if you're a facility manager or an engineer or a subcontractor that really only works on existing buildings, then you might get Lead AP Plus, a specialty in operations and maintenance. That would be your specialty. First, you have to become a Green Associate or already be a past Lead AP, but then that would probably be your specialty to really know that rating system, which we'll talk about later today. But in order to reach that Lead AP Plus tier, you do have to have experience on lead projects, so there's new eligibility requirements. There are for the Green Associate as well. You either have to take some sort of course like this or have worked on a lead project or be in a sustainable field of business. There's some gray areas there, but you have to submit some verification that you've done one of those things. Lead AP Plus, you have to have worked on a registered project. And what you'll gain from that, once you're Lead AP Plus, you're showing you have in-depth knowledge of that specific rating system. Lead Fellows, the 3rd tier, not even defined yet, because this just rolled out with Lead 2009. So they're really just going to be the leaders, the people on the forefront, really changing things in the building industry will become our Lead Fellows. CMP requirements are new. This is continuing maintenance program. This is another thing that GBCI manages. So a Green Associate must do 15 hours and report 15 hours of continuing education every 2 years. That's the reporting period. And out of those 15 hours, 3 must be lead specific. And Lead AP Plus is an example. BD plus C would be new buildings. 30 hours in each reporting period, so 30 hours per 2 years, and 6 of those must be lead specific. And there's an online management and how you keep track of your hours. and there's many different reporting methods. There's 8 different reporting methods. Hold up strange amount of fingers, 8. And those are listed in your manual that I gave you because there are options. Reading textbooks, going to a class, working on a project, and there's limits in how many hours you can get each different way. So there's kind of a prescriptive way to go about that. But a variety. You don't always have to be in a class like this. Thank goodness, right? So this is a description of topics to earn those CE hours and how they relate to the LEED rating system. This is an example of new buildings, building design and construction. So project site factor, it's an exam area for the Green Associate exam. It's also a category in your continuing maintenance program that you have to satisfy. So project site factors, related LEED credit would be sustainable sites. See SS, that's sustainable sites. Water management equates to the water efficiency category of LEED. So these are categories in which those credits lie within the LEED rating system. So each one of these categories will have various credits within them that relate to that topic. Project systems and energy impacts relates to energy and atmosphere, acquisition, installation, and management of materials, equates to materials and resources, and improvement to the indoor environment equates to indoor environmental quality. And in this section, we'll talk about quite a bit, innovation in design. This is when we get to think outside the box or reach higher levels within the LEED rating system. And regional priority, another change to LEED 2009 we'll talk about. But that really equates in the real world to stakeholder involvement. Getting the owners involved early on, getting everybody in the same room during pre-design to really talk about these opportunities, these synergies, when we're coming up with systems that work together to create a better benefit by how they work together. Surroundings and outreach. So this will all have to do with our integrated design conversation, which is really the root of sustainable design.